I had originally learned about motor patterns from Professor Ray Coppinger and trainer Ken McCord. There are different types of motor patterns. For example, there's hazard avoidance, there's reproductive motor patterns, but for this video, I'm focusing on the foraging motor pattern. Some trainers refer to it as prey drives or chase reflexes. These motor patterns often look like this example of chase, grab bite, kill bite, dissect. Often there is a retrieve motor pattern in there as well. When mankind began to selectively breed domestic dogs for certain behaviors, the motor patterns were morphed. Hounds that were specifically bred for searching and tracking, sporting breeds that were bred for stalking and pointing, herding breeds that were bred for chasing and driving, and terrier breeds that were bred for grabbing and tackling. Retriever breeds were obviously bred for retrieving game. Active motor patterns are influenced by the breed, the age of the dog, as well as the environment. Some dogs show motor patterns as early as 4 to 5 months old. They will orient, approach, and chase and grab bite one of their toys. Puppies will even continue to kill bite and head shake, then dissect, basically killing the squeaky toy. Keep in mind that some dogs have too much of a predation motor pattern for the purpose that they've been bred for. For example, the retriever that crushes the bird, the border collie that bites the livestock too hard, and the pointer that gets stuck pointing. Most motor patterns can be changed by what is reinforced. It can be a learned behavior through natural reinforcement, or it can be reinforced through humans. Motor patterns naturally produce dopamine and endorphin rushes. Dopamine is an excitatory transmitter. It's pleasurable and it tells the body to keep moving. The dopamine rushes and endorphin rushes are the natural and internal reward for practicing the motor patterns. However, the rush of dopamine can be addictive when an owner continuously chains motor patterns through. This can cause serious behavior problems, such as compulsive behaviors. For example, the dogs that can't stop fetching, the dog that gets overly fixated on squirrels, or the dog that chases moving objects. Therefore, it is very important for owners to be aware of what kind of motor patterns are being taught and reinforced. When training, I use these innate motor patterns as a reward while keeping in mind that sometimes too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. If the dog's drive is too high, then you're better to start off with some other reinforcement, which might be more enrichment. It is important to control the onset of the chase motor pattern so it does not cause high arousal and tip over into aggression and bites. Motor patterns can be changed. The approach can have an eye, stalk, chase, or trail, depending on what the candidate orients. Chase can have a substitute of forefoot stab, and retrieve can have a substitution of cache. Which brings me into the topic of enrichment and mental stimulation. It's just as good to work the mental part of your puppy's brain, not always the physical side that produces dopamine. Dogs have a keen sense of smell, and they love to utilize their noses, and basically they experience the world through their nose. And we also know that dogs are scavengers, so for mental enrichment, what I do is I take some empty femur bones, and they're hollow inside, and what I wind up doing is I pack these femur bones. I can use some little strips of chicken and put them in each bone, and I wind up taking some dog food that's probably mixed with canned dog food or even just a little bit of wet food that creates a little bit of a broth to where it's going to freeze and stick together when I put it in the refrigerator. So packing these bones and then later giving them when my dogs are bored or if they need to settle down. It's also great for destructive chewers. If you have dogs that destroy, dissect their toys way too fast, you can actually get them to dissect these bones. And what I'll do is I'll pack these bones, I'll stick them in my freezer, and I'll freeze them so they take much longer to dissect. And later on, I'll either hide them in my house or I'll hide them in my backyard so they can go and hunt for them and start dissecting the bones. It's also great for positive reinforcement to crate training, and it's also wonderful for dogs that have separation anxiety. So I've packed the bones, wrapped them up in aluminum foil, and stuck them in the refrigerator. And I repeat the same process with each bone. I usually do it the night before, and that way in the morning, if I need to leave, I have several stuffed femur bones in my freezer that are ready to go. The Kong Wobbler toy is a great toy that holds food and treats. You can do a combination of kibble and treats, and it randomly falls out with any kind of nose pushing and also with paw pushing. It's just another great toy that is wonderful for mental enrichment. Again, it can be used for all the things that I mentioned before, and it's just brain work for him. I'll also create what's called scavenger hunts, and scavenger hunts are where I take his meal and basically I scatter all of his dry dog food in the backyard, and that way he can hunt and sniff and eat his meal. And again, it just gives him enrichment. So here you see Owen in the backyard. He is slowly just eating his meal. And again, it's giving great pleasure from having to do so, but it's not producing the dopamine rushes.